It's my very deep honor now to be able to introduce to you Professor Walid Phares, who is a native of Beirut and has become, for 3 decades now, one of America's foremost experts on terrorism in the Middle East. Among his 15 books are Iran, the Imperialist Republic and U.S. Policy, Future Jihad, Terrorist Strategies Against America, The War of Ideas, Jihadism Against Democracy, The Confrontation, Winning the War Against Future Jihad, and others, and many other books. Professor Phares served as an analyst for Fox News, and he's now at Newsmax. He has advised the U.S. Congress, the European Parliament, the United Nations Security Council. They didn't listen to him. He served as foreign policy advisor to presidential candidates Mitt Romney and Donald Trump, who probably did listen to him. Walid.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. It's a pleasure and honor to be again in a forum on Africa, but specifically today on Nigeria. I would like to thank David and the work, amazing work of education of EMET. I would like to thank you, obviously, as the engineer of this movement and the International Coalition. My dear friend of 28 years and my colleague and ally, Dr. Charles Jacobs, with whom I've started to work in America on persecutions in Africa and on jihadism. And Professor, also thank you for being here. I'm gonna wisely use the few minutes I have to do 2 things. Number 1, to tell you about my own little quick journey. Why am I here now? Where I was coming from. To understand how Nigeria's events that are happening right now, especially the massacre and the ethnic cleansing of defenseless communities, including the Christian community, but not just the Christian community. Speakers have already spoken about the fact that though there is a persecution and an ethnic cleansing of specific Christian communities, Muslim communities as well who are anti-jihadists, who are neutral to jihadists, have been also dealt with violence by the jihadists in general terms. My journey started, and you may find it a little bit surprising, as a young kid in Lebanon, Beirut, Lebanon, but I was interested in politics early on in my life, and my older brother helped me as well. One day in the late 60s, he showed me newspapers and pictures of massacres taking place in Nigeria. We were always overwhelmed by the Arab-Israeli conflict. That's the only conflict that exists in the world. Then wait a minute, why were there up to, and you could correct me, 1 million Christians in Nigeria killed in the 60s? And I was a kid and wanted to know more about it. So I tried to focus on the matter. 10 years later, out of my college, I published my first book in Arabic, so it was not well read in America. And I published a photo, a picture of Nigerian persecution in Nigeria. And that was my first writing about the matter. It was later translated into French. Copies are in Congress, so on and so forth. Then I left Beirut. Why did I leave Beirut in 1990? Precisely because of the same reason. The invasion of the free enclave of the Christians in Lebanon at the hands of a multitude of jihadist regimes and organizations and etc. That was the shock that forced me to leave, not just to go seek for a job. I didn't need a job. I had a great job. I was a lawyer and successful one. But for the purpose of educating others, for the purpose of teaching. I actually had a career of 20 years teaching in colleges here. And in every course on the region, Nigeria had a place. Africa had a place. But after 9/11, I started to move and shift my interest from persecution and etc. to try to know who's behind this. It's not happening by itself. It's not a digestion issue. There is a worldwide movement which we've baptized, I don't like the term for the jihadists, jihadism. This is when I started to meet with friends like Charles and others, and we attended conferences. And then we started to develop concepts like this one, meaning speak up, tell the American public. And why the American public? Well, it's easy, because America is the biggest country in power and ability. It intervenes, it helps, or if it has different type of elites, it won't help. Like a speech that was given in Cairo in 2009, where then our president, and I'm not partisan as well, I am registered as an independent, to satisfy what the Muslim Brotherhood wanted from the United States. And there were 8 years of this, of support to the movement of the Brotherhood, to the Islamic regime in Iran. We went here, before we look at Nigeria or Lebanon or Syria or Yemen, we went through 8 years of actually diverting our attention from these persecutions. That's why many among you and NGOs said, why is it that the American public doesn't know? Because there was a policy. There was a policy of partnership with the Brotherhood, with the Khomeinists, and etc. That is something. It's not just on the left, it's also on the far right, as we see right now. People who consider jihadism as a colleague, as people who are doing yoga or something like that. So I was very honored in the 90s when I met Charles to have also had the experience of giving briefings in Congress and testifying to Congress. And who was the first congressman I testified to about the matter? He's sitting here, Congressman Wolf. Who was the second one I testified to, Congressman Smith. So I had been able to do as much as I could and interact with these members who are the key players in making sure that the American public is educated and making sure that the administrations are doing the right thing. After 9/11, we worked with EMET and other sister organizations, and we reached a point where focusing on the jihadist movement gave us a lot of explanation, not just about what is happening, what we should do about it. The most important briefing I gave to AFRICOM, I used to brief significantly our agencies or many national security agencies, and I pushed on the issue of Nigeria and also the other parts of Africa. And I brought a map with me to that meeting. I think it was about 2010, 2011. And there were all the generals and the analysts. And I showed them on the screen, this is the map of Africa, and every green dot is a location of a jihadist movement moving south. Because most of the jihadists, the Salafists, they came from Egypt, Sudan, and they started to move to Central Africa, and now they are almost in South Africa. I brought that, and then they realized, some of them criticized me, it's about, economy, about education, about psychology, the whole things that you hear all the time, as if there is no one connecting mode to all these forces coming down, not just into Africa, but also into Asia and Central Asia as well. Years later, I did another conference with the agencies, and I told them, in 2010 or 9, I showed you a map. Can you show it? They showed it. And then show the next map. That's 8 years after. The green has gone all the way down, including in Nigeria. We used to hear, you're the expert. We used to hear that Nigeria has a Boko Haram problem in the northeast, between Kano and those places. That's containable. And then we got the other side as well, northwest, where the Al-Qaeda for the Sahel, so on and so forth. And then slowly but surely, we saw these jihadists committing all these problems in the plateau. And then suddenly now we hear about who said Yoruba and Biafra. So that is not a matter of simple police activity. That is not a matter of we need to reform the entire Nigeria so we can moderate them. This is a game. This is a strategy by the jihadists. They have headquarters. Behind them, you have the Muslim Brotherhood, and then you have the arms, Al-Qaeda, and all the jihadist groups. I teach that course. So now we have 2 candidates. I briefed the first candidate in 2012, Mitt Romney. There was a file. It was good. He lost. Well, we can't do much about it. But then the one that started to change things, I was the first appointed foreign policy advisor to our president now, but I was in 2015 and 16, and there was a file called Nigeria. and it has been pushed, and thanks also to members of Congress. So coming to now, what is to be done? Because that's what politicians and leaders need to know. Number one, it's talking about it. And the higher level, the better. Because the American public is influenced, is impacted by what the leaders are saying. I met with many Americans and many Africans and many African Americans, and they told me that everything started to change when President Trump spoke about it. You know, he's quick. It's not long speeches, a tweet. And he spoke about it, so people now have a greater interest. Number two, inside Nigeria, people start to have some hope. I know they tweet at my tweet when I say, well, we need to do this, we need to intervene here, and that, you know, how long are we going to wait? All minorities or all communities under jihadi threat, they have a problem, which is time. That's the problem, and we understand that. But at this point in time, the recommendations that I would think about is, number one, speaking about it. Number two, as some among you have spoken, including you know, our good former members of Congress, legislate about it. Because once you legislate, the issue goes higher and higher. And then last point, we need to make sure that every map in front of us has a strategy to respond to it. Let me explain it in less than a minute. So in the Northeast, we have those extreme jihadists who have a strategy, who have connections to ISIS. There need to be military action there. And if the government doesn't intervene, the government of Nigeria, which is accused by some among you and many among us, of being complicit or not helping or etc., there need to be actions. And if actions doesn't come, then we need to have an action. We need to have an international coalition to go in at the end of the day. And when we move to the southern parts of Nigeria, each community has a vision. Each community may have a future in mind. But what needs to be done is all communities at the same time have one goal, which is to defeat the jihadists. And the American people should be behind them. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.